Thought we'd get the latest from Grant McLellan, CEO of the Saskatchewan Cattlemen's Association. What is this story and what does it mean? We find Mr. McLellan in Regina this morning. Grant, thanks so much for taking our call.
Hey, John, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks, man. So tell me about what happened on the original Japanese restrictions and where we've come to today.
Well, I mean, in 2003, it was pretty much the entire border as it stands was shut down. And Japan is a significant beef consumer when it comes to global consumption. I believe they are the third largest beef importer in the world. And so it was a pretty big blow when it comes to cattle producers and beef producers in particular in Canada. We're very excited that that market has finally opened all the way up again. So that was great news the other day.
So have they been gradually easing or buying certain kinds of beef up till now from Canada, or have we been completely closed?
We were completely closed. Now, under the verbose trade agreement, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, there had been an easing of some of those restrictions, and there were tariffs still that were slated to be reduced. As of April 1st, actually, we were supposed to see a drop on our beef exports to Japan on the tariffs, drop from 38.5% to 23.35%. So this announcement kind of gets ahead of that trajectory in terms of where the easing was supposed to come in that agreement.
So that's a significant tariff. Yes. All of that will be lifted now with the border reopening?
As far as it's under our understanding that all the restrictions have been removed.
Wow. So as far as Canada's beef herd, when we look at numbers, whether exports, whether sales, clearly Alberta's got the largest herd, but our herd's a good size as well.
Yeah, and it fluctuates, but we hang around about a quarter of Canada's total beef herd. I think around last year, we were standing around about 27%. If you look at today's numbers, we're about 23%. Of course, we finish and feed a lot of our cattle in Alberta. So those numbers sometimes, just like our people population numbers, Alberta sometimes is represented by Saskatchewan's population. But Alberta hovers around anywhere between 40 and 50% usually, and Saskatchewan somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25%, as high as 30% from time to time. So, yeah, between those two provinces, for sure, we're about 75% of Canada's beef herd.
Grant McLellan with us, CEO of the Saskatchewan Cattlemen's Association. So have we been able to crunch what the numbers look like lately on our export sales? Obviously, this is an industry that is feeding people well beyond the borders of Saskatchewan. What is the market looking like right now? And then, of course, with the Japanese reopening, what will that do?
I mean, with the Japanese market, so as of last year, we exported in Canada. And so you can extrapolate, I suppose, the Saskatchewan numbers out of that. It's hard to necessarily track exactly once you go from cattle to meat because of where the packers are, et cetera. But the Japanese exports from Canada were $528 million last year. And that was already an increase of nearly 20% over the previous year. So it's a pretty big market. They're the second largest beef export market for Canadian producers next to the United States. So it can't be understated how valuable that market is. And of course, that market also, they typically take some products that aren't consumed domestically. Cow tongues and things like that are a bit of a delicacy in Japan. So we do see an opportunity for other products as well to use the entire animal type of thing. But by and large, it's a great opportunity, and it's great news for Saskatchewan beef producers.
That's good to hear. So generally our export markets, I mean, this is a good news story. What are we doing on the export front overall? In
terms of total dollars, I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood, I'd have to double check my numbers again here, but it's in the neighborhood of $6 to $6.5 billion. So wow. It's not insignificant when you talk about the overall agriculture sector, but it's a pretty significant number that our beef producers contribute to the Canadian economy and, of course, to the Saskatchewan economy.
So the food inflation, of course, you're at the very front end of beef production, or I guess the back end, depending on how we want to structure it. But a lot of people talking food inflation. Where does that start to get those prices attached? You know, as we go from on the hoof to being finished to then the production of beef and the slaughter facilities. Where does that start to get more pricey for the consumer?
Well, that's a great question, John. And the Alberta beef producers just came out with a report the other day. I think it was a couple weeks ago now. We don't have a lot of great data. Once the animal leaves the farm or leaves the marketplace and then shows up on your grocery shelf, there's not a lot of information as to how those prices are arrived at. And I think there's a number of columns written by Dr. Sylvain Charlebois, who previously was a professor here in Saskatchewan at the University of Regina, now at Dalhousie. But there's a lot of concern and, frankly, confusion sometimes from our producers as to they walk into the co-op or they walk into Walmart or Safeway and see the price on the shelf and are curious exactly where that price is coming from, where that markup is coming from. Now, of course, they're seeing increased prices when they sell, but how we arrive at exactly that retail rate and how that money is supposed to get back to producers is a bit lost in there. Now, what we're particularly concerned about or curious about is how much does the carbon tax play into that, and how much is that leading to food inflation, and is that leading people to take good protein out of their diet? And so we're very interested in that. The Alberta report came out. It talks about how we need to have a beef box price index so that we can do a little bit more analysis. But I plan to be in Alberta in a couple of weeks meeting with the Minister of Agriculture along with Minister Merritt from Saskatchewan to do a little bit more discussion on that, do a little more digging, and how we can get some answers for our producers and how we can ultimately get the best value for our consumers.
It's a great point. Grant, always good having you by. Thanks so much for taking the time this morning.
Thanks, John.